Let's go beyond the connection. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we've got a very special guest on, Tom Seeker. Now, Tom, I wish there was one really good way to describe your background, but I'm going to take a crack at it and then let you expand on that a little bit. You're a long-time C-level executive, 3-time CTO. I think you're a fractional CTO with a number of different companies right now. You have your own lab where you test out everything from hardware to software, internet connection, everything for like the restaurant industry, point of sale, operations, you name it. And all of that is to make sure that everything is connected and working properly together so that you can help grow the business. And I'm going to let you put a lot more kind of meat on that bone, but we're looking at actually a picture of the lab in the background. And we're going to talk about the connected kitchen today and how it powers the modern enterprise, because what runs over our network and how it goes in and out of the kitchen, which is the heartbeat of the business, how every operator interacts, how every customer experience is ignited, how we track our KPIs, how we generate revenue, it all goes through the connected kitchen these days. So before we get into it, I'd love to have you expand a little bit more on your background and do a better job than I just did there.
Actually, you did great. I'm the geek. Bottom line, I started out with a old computer. The 8088 is my first. And I built technology. I burned down technology. I smoke tested half everything I worked with. But my world has been as a technologist. I was in the Navy for 10 years. And then when I got out of the Navy, I started working with restaurants. And I joke about it because, quite frankly, it's the last place I thought I'd ever work. I did not want to be in this industry. I thought it was beneath me. I worked high tech with multi-million-dollar equipment and top secret world and the Navy and all kinds of cool stuff. Last place I wanted to work was with the connected kitchen, because back then the connected kitchen was a oversized calculator and a impact printer. But the reality is it turned out that technology and that experience that I had absolutely applied directly to restaurants, and I didn't even know it. I was a computer geek, and the world was just becoming computerized in restaurants. So I learned that, and I started working with restaurants. I've been an operator for 20 some years. And having worked with restaurants like Barnhill's Buffet, which was a Southern restaurant with 48 locations in 8 states. And then I went to Outback Restaurant Partners and worked with those 8 brands as a business analyst project manager. Working with them, I've been an IT director, and they hired me to come in and help understand things from a different angle. Then I started working with another company called McGuire's out of Pensacola, where you got to kiss the moose and you got the dollar bills hanging from the ceiling. And the third word of the company is debauchery. So I immediately signed on when I got the offer. I figured it was a perfect place to fit for me. And it was awesome. I then went to work for a company called Shrimp Basket, which obviously a seafood chain and out of Pensacola, Florida. I went to work for a golf bag company called Burton Golf, only one in the United States. Then I went and started working for a hot tub manufacturer. Then I went for an audiovisual lighting and broadcasting company. So I guess the point that I'm making is, other than my most recent history, I've worked in all industries, done a little bit of everything from systems analyst up through. And in the last 10, 15 years, I've been working in the C-suite. I've been working vice president and CIO and CTO. Most recently, I was a CIO for Earl Enterprises, where we had 14 restaurant brands from Planet Hollywood, Brio, Bravo, Bertucci, Buca, Earl's Sandwich, Chicken Guy, 2J's, and a bunch of one-offs. Multiple different point of sale systems, multiple different back of houses, very chaotic and somewhat of a nightmare. But it was awesome to be able to sit down and start working on that kind of a tech stack, which is where the innovation lab, the technology innovation lab out of Jupiter, that's where I am a fractional CTO right now. I'm also a fractional CTO for a restaurant brand called Ziggi's Coffee, just north of Denver, Colorado, about 108 locations now. Really amazing brand. Best coffee in the world. I'm not even a coffee drinker, but everybody around me seems to adore it. And then I'm also a fractional CTO for another company that's confidential, and I do some consulting work with multiple other companies. So I've got my iron in multiple different fires as a vendor and as an operator, which is the cool part, because with the Innovation Lab, we are a single-minded environment with just one small job. It's to take everything that happens from the time a customer walks in the door until the time finance reconciles it at the bank and everything that happens in between. So every transaction, everything, we're here to help the customer solve their problems with every vendor and every solution that you need to get their data from customer to bank. And as we've talked about, Steve, data is king, not cash. So that's where we get. And then the end result is the innovation lab is everything from 17 different point of sales. We have healthcare, we have retail, we have kiosks, we have KDS menu boards. We partner with Samsung. We partner with all the different POS companies, with Logic Controls, with Olea. We have multiple different partners all the way across the spectrum with everything within the tech stack. So if you want to just summarize it in one word, it couldn't be done.
You mentioned in there that data, not cash, is king, and today's network is the heartbeat of all operations internally and externally, and it's all about the data that runs over that network. If you could give me your point of view on why data, not cash, is king, I'd love to start there.
The modern restaurant, 85, 90% of every transaction is digital. Therefore, let's just take that and add it to people. 8 out of 10 people, based off those kind of numbers, are paying digitally. And that means that a cash drawer doesn't open. So if you're going to deposit something in the bank and you're not popping the cash drawer, that's data. It's just that simple. So the reality is data is king, because the other side of it is counting your cash, mailing in your receipts back to the corporate office, and waiting for 25 days at the end of the next month or the beginning of the next month to know whether you made a profit doesn't work in this modern era. It didn't work back then. It surely doesn't work now. So to be able to understand real time where you are and to make real time actionable decisions based off of what's happening now, not what's happening 30 days ago, to be able to understand when you have less people coming in sitting down at the restaurant, do you need to have it staffed up as much? Do you need to make decisions? Because you know what? The football game is being held in your area and there's 9 more buses. And if you don't know about it and you've only got 2 people on staff, but you didn't staff up, maybe AI could have let you know, hey, heads up. Or you're going to have a storm and you hadn't thought about it, but now you got nobody coming in the restaurant. So maybe you need to shift where your labor is. So all of that comes back to cash in the bank or money in the bank. So data is king because it gives you all of that, and what tools we use to be able to understand that and to analyze that, and where the human comes is to be able to understand how to apply that in their unique environment. Data is king. And it's been that way for a long time. It's just the people like catchphrases that sound cool and they haven't changed that one in a while.
You started to get into an interesting area there, that you had a big recommendation, because there's going to be CTOs and head of IT and CIOs listening in here. You talked in our previous call about how not only is data is king and why, but how as technologists, we have to not only be able to talk, but understand the business model that our data is feeding into. And if we don't understand that, and we can't talk at a business level with our other C-suite executives and the board and investors and things like that, that we're not doing justice to the company and to our jobs. So tell me a little bit about the importance of understanding the business model that the data is serving.
That's the best question I've had asked in the last year of interviews that I've had. And I'll be telling you why. For any IT director or young VP who's watching and trying to learn, the best advice I could give any technologist out there is, if you want a seat at the table, you need to understand what's being said. It's just that simple. Often IT had always been considered the redheaded stepchild in the back room. Pre-pandemic, you call them when you need them. And when you need them, you're not real happy with them because things are broke and you don't want to see them anyway. The pandemic came, and all of a sudden they started calling the IT directors and others in and said, hey, how do we make money? How do we sell it? At 2J's, we were actually, Tom, I need you to figure out how to get an aggregator working, because we'd never had one. We needed to work in an environment where we're using one step beyond dial-up. We were using ISDN lines with 128K, maybe, if you're lucky. And how do we get people to buy a product from us? Because we're going to close like all the other restaurants that are not able to ship. We were selling toilet paper over the counter at the restaurant and taking it out curbside. And we had cars lined up. And although we are a not toilet paper resale company, we were able to get toilet paper through our large vendors versus when Walmart was running out. People were lining up. And oh, yeah, they were also buying food and stuff like that they may not have been normally considering. So you have to shift, you have to pivot. And part of that is just understanding what the business needs, because too often technologists can speak I need a Class C IP address as a /16. I need to have it sitting inside of VLAN and DMZ. Every one of the IT geeks listening knew exactly what I just said. None of the business people had a clue. And by the way, don't care. However, if I'm talking to the bean counter and he says, this is going to be depending on what we get or what we deal with EBITDA, if you don't understand what that's going back to cash is king, the end result is if they don't have the money to give to you to buy it and you don't understand their language, at least a little bit, you're no longer in the conversation. So learning to sit at the table and understanding what the business needs, then you can start understanding what your tech stack, what your actions, how your people respond are going to impact how you make money. When you start becoming a problem solver, not just a solution provider, that is a big deal. Also, you learn real quickly how you sound to people when you start telling them you need to set up an IP address, because they start to feel like you're talking down to them. So when you start and you learn the business that you're in, you understand that because people can't clock in, they feel they're not getting paid and they quit. And then now your restaurant's short one person. You have an employee that got upset because the tech stack work wasn't working. But in your opinion, that wasn't really that important to fix that because this other thing was more important. Understanding your business means you're going to make decisions to interact with the people that need it the most and not make your decisions based off of what you want to do or what's really cool to you. So to answer your question, if you're not today as an IT director understanding what's being said in the boardroom and understanding what's being said between the C-suite, you need to go grab a chair and sit outside their office until they don't let them fire you, but sit there, ask to listen, ask to be involved, be quiet. I wasn't able to do that, but go sit and listen to what they say, ask questions. They will respect you and they will include you in more conversations and you'll be successful.
I got to tell you, AI is your friend. So any kind of a business acronym or process or theory, or you just look it all up online and get yourself prepared. Because one of the most important things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to be a seller. You're going to have to advocate for your department, your resources, and what you can do. And the more that you know about what's important to them, the more that you can tie what you're doing. And if I had a little bit more, I could do this, and here's how it would help. That's how you're going to grow your importance and your strategic value and your tenure at the company. So I love this whole part of the conversation. There's another strategic conversation that we had, which is just constantly understanding deeply your customers and the shifting needs and priorities of that entire market and what's happening. Tell me, usually you talk to the marketing guys about understanding your customer. Like, why does the chief technology officer in the technology department need to understand the customer intuitively?
In the end, they're the ones paying the bill. So it makes a lot of sense for you to find ways to make it most efficient for a customer to put an order in, for a customer to make a payment, and for a customer to leave a positive comment. There's things you have to leave to other people. Operations has to perform to make sure that they're doing table touches and that they're making the customer happy and that the food is tasting good and that it's arriving on time. Part of that's on you. If it's not arriving on time, did the make time fire? Did it delay and not send something on time? Or did it send the salad and the steak out at the exact same time? There's a lot that needs to be understood. Coming back to knowing your customer, customers don't often want their dessert at the same time they're eating their entree, except me, where I eat it all. But most of the time, understanding your customer can be something as simple as your customer changes using the pandemic. My customer were people that were sitting in the restaurant, eating at the table, being served by the server for the entire time I was in the industry. Maybe if we had drive-throughs, it was the customer sitting in their own chair, driving around, picking the food up. But other than that, it was the same customer. They just didn't want to come in. Pandemic changed everything, because the customer was going to a third party. And sometimes if you were a virtual brand, you're not even a brick and mortar. So the reality is you may be a Beast Burger running out of a Red Robin kitchen. So you're not going to be able to go to Red Robin and understand your customer demographic, because the people driving through or the people picking up the Beast Burger delivery are not the people that eat at that restaurant. It just happened that they had a kitchen or space. They have the burger and the stickers to make the Beast Burger while they were not busy to be able to get that out the door to a delivery driver who was white labeled to deliver Beast Burger. And all of that happened here, but that's not their customer at all. Their customer is a person who went up on DoorDash or went somewhere and they ordered Beast Burger, and it could be one of anybody. So you have to understand who your customer is. And as an IT person, my customer is not directly the customer. My customer is everybody in that restaurant that's consuming my product. So it's mostly employees. My customer are the people taking care of the customer. So my job is to take care of my customer, and then their job is to work with me. So when you say why CTO versus CMO, you should be sitting side by side hearing the same thing. I should be communicating what the tools are and how they're going to get the information. They should be communicating what they need. And then the results of that, we should both be hearing with the other executives, because then they're going to be talking about menu changes. And if they're talking about menu changes, I need to be giving my team a heads up that they think they're leaving Friday, but we're doing a menu change on Monday. So maybe not so much. Understanding that, the collaboration that really should be happening, and IT needs to quit being IT. It needs to be technology. IT is too limited to break fix. The technologists within your environment need to understand the entire environment, and you need to be plugged in. And even if it's not something that you're doing, it will impact you in some way, form, or another. The facilities department making a change at a restaurant, and I've had this happen. They were doing something in the kitchen, blew a breaker and shut everything down and blew all my equipment up in the office. Where had I been paying attention, I could have told them, make sure you down your equipment and unplug this, because they're working around something that quite likely will cause problems, and simply unplugging it would have saved us $10,000. So understanding your customer doesn't mean understanding the customer. It understands who you're serving and then understand who they're serving. But the customer pays the bills. And in the end, when you're going before the board of directors explaining why you did or did not do something, it's why it didn't make it to the bank account that matters. And anything that you did that prevented it is going to be something you're going to have to answer for.
I love that you define the customer in two ways. There's the internal customer, and definitely every department is an internal customer of technology. So that's really important to find that. I want to get into your lab and what you're doing there and the innovation that you're doing. But I want to first talk about the innovation that has happened inside of the connected kitchen. You talked about it a little earlier. You said back when it was a burner and a printer, and that was the connected kitchen. Talk to me about the connected kitchen today and the ways that it's connected and the ways that then that connection is important to the operations, the customer experience, and the growth of the business.
Now, I think it's important because connected kitchen means different things to different people too. It's no different per plate average or what is a guest count. Depends on where you go and how they define that. So I'm just going to be more broad about what the connected kitchen is. I'm going to say the connected kitchen is the tech stack within the restaurant that impacts how things flow between the front of house and back of house, and how all of them work using the tech stack to get there. The end result is the old restaurants. You had UM220 impact printers. You remember the kind that sounded like they were ripping the house in half? And up front, you had these little thermal printers, and you had people hanging stuff. And this isn't that long ago. Up, and then you had grease all over everything, and people were running around yelling at each other. The kitchen's real noisy. It wasn't really efficient. As time came by, and very quickly, we started introducing technology that could withstand the heat, which was a big jump within the industry. Then we started plugging in devices like things like thermostats, and we started plugging in building control systems. Now every IoT device that's out there, every grill, every freezer has a way to plug something in, and it gets hooked into your network. And now you got a 192.168.1.201 which is your grill, and 202, which is this, and 235 is TV1, TV2, TV3, TV4. And you've got this whole connected environment, which is no longer a single purpose. A screen may be a dual purpose thing. It may be one moment, a mini board, the next moment, it may be a kiosk, or it may be a KDS, or it may be a marketing LTO display device if it's not being used. But this connected kitchen mindset is taking everything and connecting it back to a central brain. And it's allowing you, through a single pane of glass mindset, allowing you to understand in real time how everything is working. Understanding that I rang something up and somebody had it when they needed it. They did what they need, and that I understood that they did it. And I didn't have to run back and forth. If a customer needs a manager, can the employee tap their tablet and the manager comes, and they don't have to go find the manager? If a broom falls in the kitchen, is the camera system recognizing that I have a trip and fall hazard, and it's alerting somebody before the trip and fall happens? All of these kind of things tie back into what I would call the connected kitchen. In the old days, the connected kitchen was the KDS system and what was happening in the kitchen. Bottom line is the ability for all of your electronics to communicate in a singular world within the same tech stack, and allowing this data, again, data is king, allowing this data to intelligently be gathered, manipulated, and displayed so you can do something in real time. Because while data is king, too much data is a death row. Because if you can't dig through it and make intelligence out of it, it's just cluttered. It's noise.
How does this connected kitchen and this stack, how does it positively impact customer experience, operator experience, and growth of the business? And just start out in any way, because I can ask three questions at once there, but the connected kitchen is there to build a bigger business, which means we've got to take care of customers and the operators that are serving them. How does it expand the experience for all of that?
Great question. And here's a scenario. The customer walks in and they want something, or they drive through a drive-through window. If they come in and they sit down, I have table turns, and that's a KPI we all understand. If they're driving through the window, I've got window turns, and I've heard it called multiple things, but for today, we'll just call it how often are we turning the window? So I've also got customers that drive up and drive away. All of these different environments need to be managed. If I'm doing curbside, but I got to wait 30 minutes for somebody to recognize I'm there and then bring me out my food and it's cold by the time I get it, I'm negatively impacted. The positive impact of this, though, is if I order something at the counter and it hits the kitchen at the right time and the right people are able to bump it through its process and get it to me where it's warm quickly, the food tastes great, I pay for it, and I'm satisfied if I walk out, if it's brought to me in a reasonable period of time, and people do table turns and they come up and touch my table and say to me, I hope you're enjoying your meal, because they're able to focus on it versus having to run up to the window and yell, why is this food not ready? Customer X is unhappy. Customer Y did not get this. Why is this meal not done? Everything from when the orders rang up, the system recognizes it. AI is looking at the cameras and saying, wait a minute, this high-end table has got this steak and this and this, and the steak is the wrong size. Or you've got the wrong item on that plate. There's all kinds of things that could prevent you from making mistakes, that bring efficiencies from the time that it's run to the kitchen, brings efficiencies on getting it to the table, allows the customer to communicate using something like a Zios or another tool to say, hey, I'd like a drink reordered, instead of having the server who's running around with their head cut off, pay attention to that table. They request a drink, they get a drink, and they're very happy. They leave a big tip. Now the server gets a good tip because the customer was happy and they were busy taking care of all the customers they needed. Those customers are happy. So you have this positive downhill roll where one thing happens right, then 10 things can happen right. But one hurdle can make 20 hurdles. So the same positive impact can be the same negative impact. We've had the negative impact for years. The digital kitchen is there to provide you tools. And now that AI is coming into the conversation, it's able to look at all these tools and help you manage all this data coming at you and do something with it so it's positive, it's actionable, and helps you understand where the negative is. It could be something as simple as it's watching reviews on Review Tracker for you And the LTOs that you're serving are coming back as terrible. Hey, we're selling shrimp and everyone that's been delivered tastes like rubber puck. Maybe we don't deliver those anymore. Maybe we turn off delivery for that and then everybody's happy. I would rather lose the 10% I was making on delivery on that than 100% of everybody who reads about the negative reviews. So this digital kitchen is there to act like a gate guard, to act like a cop in a bad traffic accident, to allow things to smoothly flow where they need to go, allow things that are bad to be taken care of efficiently, and allow people to spend more time taking care of the customer, like we talked about. If the manager can walk around and ask, how's your meal? It is a better dining experience because somebody cares. If the server can spend more time serving instead of running plates back because they're doing both cleanup and taking orders, they can do that efficiently because they're getting things handed to them when they need them, but they're not being handed 10 things they don't need that they got to put in their pocket and then go back to remember. That's what this whole thing is about. It's using a Phillips head screwdriver for a Phillips head screw. It's using a socket wrench to drive the right socket into the right nut to turn it onto the right bolt. It's the right tool for the modern kitchen because the other side of that is training. Our workforce now is much more efficient, including the 70-year-old server who's been doing this for 20 years now versus 5 years ago. The 70-year-olds who now has a smartphone, they're doing their banking. 5 years ago, they probably weren't. The paradigm is shifting. The world and the industry is ready technologically and hospitality, where 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we would have never dreamt that we're doing what we're doing today.
The restaurant industry tends to run on very paper-thin profit margins. If you can eke out efficiencies in all the areas you just talked about, a little here, it adds up to a tremendous amount. This is now what you're doing in your lab, your innovation lab. I can only imagine is how do we make incremental efficiencies to impact operations, experience, and profit of the business? And every little bit helps. I would love to just right now, what are the top 2 or 3 things you're focused on in your innovation lab to create more efficiencies, better experiences, and more profit?
You're asking not only the right question, but you framed it perfectly. So let me say this. Let me tell you the problem, and then we'll tell you why the lab was created, because the lab was created to solve the problem. The problem is, if I want a new point of sale, I'm not happy with what I have. It's old. It's been around forever. I have to go buy a new point of sale. I've got to go and I've got to get beans to be able to finance all new hardware because most of the time it won't work. I've got to retrain people. I've got to redo menus. It is a massive undertaking to do that. That's a problem. And every salesman out there wants you to go buy their newest widget, and they want you to get stuck and pigeonholed in their new environment with the promise that's the best thing you ever did. And quite often they're right for the first year and a half. Then your business model changes because your customer changes, but your tools are old and rusty and you're stuck. So the Innovation Lab was created to solve this kind of mindset. I always state we're the single pane of glass driven. We want to basically be in an environment where our operators, our vendors, everybody can look at what we're doing in one place and manage our world. That's the dream. That's the goal. The art of the possible is our mission. How do we do this in the lab to get people where they need to go? An operator may be simply saying, Tom, I need a new aggregator because what I have isn't working, or I've never had one before. So do I look at Olo? Do I look at Chowly? Do I look at Checkmate? Do I look at doing my own direct API? All of these are great companies and they're all great questions, and no single solution is right for anybody. So the end result is Toast may be the perfect solution for you, or a NCR cloud may be a great solution for you. Or you know what? The deposits may be good, or you may be looking at PosiTouch. We've been around forever, but you know what? This is my key. You've got to meet people where they are. Then you take them where they're trying to go. And you have to understand that. If I invested 2 years ago in $350,000 worth of tech, I'm not likely wanting to drop all of that and invest another $350,000 because I'm admitting to my board of directors that I'm an idiot and I should be fired. So probably just not going to do it, which means no innovations are going to happen. So the innovation lab talks with everybody from single partners, single franchisees of I'm trying to do this, to large enterprises like Earl, which again, this is kind of what brought this world together. Is I've got 14 different restaurant groups in my enterprise, and I've got to make these guys talk. I got to make them work. And when I'm talking between an environment, let's just talk about one of them. I've got off-premise through the third party. I've got catering through this company. I've got loyalty through that company. I've got aggregation going through Olo, which means my consumer direct website is also through Olo. That's now integrating into my NCR quick service environment. In my NCR quick service environment, I don't have a kiosk because they didn't have capability of kiosks. So who do I work with on that? Every single one of these solutions are different people. And whenever they take their input and give you output, it's no longer not only their problem, but they can't help you with getting it to the next step. So the bottom line is, from third party to the time it hits my finance department to reconcile. So you order something on DoorDash, 3 days later, they're still getting adjustments to DoorDash. So they don't know if they made money because somebody was given a refund and somebody was not charged for delivery. And now they go back and charge them for delivery, and then it's rejected, but you counted that delivery. Now you got to take it back off. Your P&L is adjusting throughout the week. Your operating people are freaking out because where they thought they made bonus, now they didn't make bonus. This is my everyday. I used to have hair. So getting to an environment that we can work with the vendor, i.e. the provider, the Chowly, the Olo, the Checkmate, the DoorDash, all these different vendors are partners within the lab. We work with all of them. We're agnostic. So therefore, of the 17 point of sales that you see in the background, and there are many more coming, we are there to help people understand where they are. So if they're already in an environment, it maybe we're there to help them figure out how to make something work within their environment. And then we work with them, we work with their solution, and we can do it without having to do it at one of their restaurants where it's knocking them offline. And then we can give them an environment. We have a showroom up front that after we demonstrate it, we can put it up in the showroom and they can come take a look at it in their environment and test it before they ever have to run to a restaurant and put it in. So from the customer to the bank and everything in between, the innovation lab was created and it was designed to work with all these different partners to solve problems. We also work with all the different vendors. We certify solutions. So if somebody wants to use our 8-inch Samsung mobile point of sale environment, so the entire infrastructure, and let's say NCR or Oracle or one of the others, if a company wants to use that, they can come to us and we will certify that Oracle version XYZ works on that device using a Mobi 5500 through Freedom Bank. And we'll run that whole process. So when they make that decision, they're buying a package and they're able to walk into their environment with multiple different vendors and have it work and understand it and not have to do it themselves. So we become those subject matter experts. We do the same thing with healthcare. We do the same thing through retail. So the innovation lab in of itself was a result of me being frustrated that there was nowhere in the world that I could go to as a CIO and say, how do I get everybody together in the same room? So I'm not having to have 25 different meetings to get my kiosk, to talk to my point of sale, to talk to my back of house, to talk to my BI and get it to flow into my finance department and then make sure that all of this works. That was 9 different people and it drove me nuts. So we created this to fix that type of environment, but then also work with the different vendors to set standards. We work with RTN, I'm on the board. And one of the things that we do with RTN is we set standards. So, first name equals this many characters and that's this. So if vendors all build it out using the same standards, then if I have a best of class solution and I need to shift gears because my clientele has changed or because I'm no longer in hotels, I'm in now brick and mortar standalone, I may have to unplug from a system, even if they're great, and plug a different system in. If everybody's using the same standards like USB-C for Apple now, and for a regular Android phone, same device, same everything, I can charge both of them. I can send data to both of them. That took years. Now we're here in the industry doing that same thing. So the lab is looking at standards, it's looking at capabilities, and it's working with operators and vendors alike agnostically. So this is not the best solution. That is not the best solution. Every one of our vendors knows that even though I have my preferences, if my venue is the best solution, then we're going to say to them, my venue is the best solution for what you're wanting to do. And the innovation lab is not sales. The best salespeople in the world are not trying to make a sale. That's not what we do. We do the MTech Mobility does do sales. We do certain things, but the reality is for the things that we don't do, we have partners and we will push people to those partners so they can talk to them and make those decisions. The lab stands on its own 2 feet. It grabs its credibility because we're there to help you solve your problem, not sell you a product.
What you just defined there is typically the problem with every tech stack. How does this portion of the tech stack talk to this portion of the tech stack? And then how do I get the different data sets that are siloed and fragmented to come together so that we can make some sense out of this? And so I love that you're doing. And I know people are going to have a ton of questions, and I would love to talk for another couple of hours, but is it appropriate that I give out a link to your LinkedIn profile?
I would love that. And you know what, Steve, if we want to down the road, if we get enough questions, we could do something live and we can answer any question. It doesn't have to be about the lab. I'm here, as you well know. I want the industry to get better. I work with a lot of folks that are leaders. We got Zarek at Five Guys. You get all kinds of CIOs stuff that I work with on the different boards. And a lot of what we do is to try to bring what the right answer is to the industry. So just talking to me doesn't mean I'm trying to sell you a contract with the Innovation Lab. I'd love to, but on the same token, I would just be glad to help answer questions and help drive people in the right direction.
Well, that sounds great. And this was a big step forward. We were able to talk and get a lot of territory covered. And the mission of the podcast here is how do we bring different perspectives and different insights from different backgrounds and different roles and different companies and pull it all together? Because the network that connects all of this is equally as important as all the operations, because it is the access point to everything that we talked about here. The data that runs across the network means that our networks are more important to our businesses than they ever have been before. And I just think everything, the tech stack then that runs across that network, the data, the experiences, you created a holistic picture today that I thought was fantastic. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and being a part of this today.
It was an honor. Thank you for having me on. And I look forward to watching the rest of your podcast. It's really great.